everyone, Britta Albert here. If this is your first time here, I'm a spiritual transformational life coach. I am so excited today. As you see, this is a slightly different format. We are coming to you from a Zoom call, and I want to introduce one of very good friends, a woman who is very inspirational to me, and I know she's going to have a lot of value.
Hi, Britta. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about the ego. And Jodi and I, we both have a different perspective of what the ego is. So this is part one on my channel. This is more going to be Jodi's side of the perspective. And then for part two, go ahead and check out Jodi's channel. I'll put the link below where you'll see my perspective of the ego. So Jodi, tell me, what is the ego?
Okay, so to me, and I know we differ a little bit on this because we discussed it already, but the ego to me is your protector. It is like a helicopter mom in a way. It is the one thing in your life that wants you never to be hurt, to be suffering, to be sad, to put yourself in danger in any way, shape, or form. All of that sounds really great, but the problem is that it's a very overprotective mother. It's a combination of words and things that you have heard in your entire life. It's experiences that have gone wrong and even right for all of your friends, your family, and it's proven even in your DNA that you have memories that you don't necessarily remember, but experiences from relatives that have passed on before you that are trapped in your DNA, and that is part of your ego. So we have a body, mind, and a spirit, and our mind is considered to be the ego. What happens with this is the voice of your ego is constantly doing whatever it can to make sure that you stay what it would consider to be very happy. It doesn't want you again to get hurt. It doesn't want you to take a chance on that job. And so it will say things to you like, are you sure you want to do this? This is a really secure job. Are you sure you want to take a risk? And so you hear that voice. And like I said, it's a combination of experiences from your entire family. So anything that's gone wrong, either in your life or in another person's life, is ego evidence of something bad that's happened to you. So you have this voice that's constantly kind of going on, and I call it it's a critical voice. It's not that it doesn't care about you, and it's not that it doesn't want the best for you. It's just really more concerned about you never feeling uncomfortable. So the one thing about the critical mind that I really, really have a hard time with is that it's like a dictatorship inside of your head, and it's a slave driver. So it's whipping you into submission constantly. And it's don't do this because of fear of this. That's sort of how the ego works. And the problem, of course, with that is that it prevents us from living our true and authentic life, to being happy, because we're constantly worried about being hurt, taking chances. Being uncomfortable is very uncomfortable for the ego, and the ego will do whatever it can whenever you start to feel uncomfortable to pull you back into that place of safety and security. The other thing about the ego that I find most of the time is that the ego is a giant liar. And that's what I like to call it a lot. When I hear it saying things to me that I now have learned aren't necessarily true for me, is I will stop and say, okay, that's not true. This is actually true. It doesn't like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It's made me feel so uncomfortable in the past that I've almost felt nauseous, or I can get dizzy when I'm really trying to fight it. And it's not my intuition is saying, no, Jodi, you're right. But my ego is just like, no, no, no. It takes a while to kind of transition from one place to another. So to me, that's what the ego is.
So would you say that, because I've heard some people talk about the ego in that way, but they call it, instead of calling it ego, it's called karma.
I don't believe in karma in the way that other people believe in karma. Karma to me is simply energy that you are calling into your space. So if you are saying something to yourself like, I know that I'm not going to get that job, then karma says, you're right, you're not going to get that job. That's how I see karma. I don't believe that we had specific lessons that we're supposed to learn in this particular lifetime in order to move up the chain of whatever. I do believe that we are becoming more wise, just as I'm much more wise now than I was 20 years ago. And so the more you experience, the more you learn. But karma, in my opinion, is not like that. Karma is much more simple. And I don't associate it with the ego.
So I know people have heard the term ego death before. Is that something that you strive for?
Ego death? I mean, your ego, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, I don't know that I've even ever heard this before, but your ego is your mind. So if I'm going to kill my ego, then I'm killing the good part of my mind. So my solution isn't an ego death. It's a, how do you work with the ego? Because it's something, our thoughts, that critical mind is probably always going to be with me to some degree. And I'm always going to want it to be with me to some degree because it does want to protect me. And it will at least make me look at things from the proper perspective of this could happen. And then I make a choice as to whether or not I want to go down that road or not. So, I mean, I have heard people say that ego can die off. I mean, Eckhart Tolle just says, forget your mind, forget that you have a mind, just forget it. And I personally can't do that. My mind doesn't ever want to stop thinking. So my solution is not to kill off the ego. I work with it. When my intuition says one thing and my ego says another, I will say, okay, this is the truth. And I push that. And I believe in the higher self being the thing of basically your spirit. It's your spirit in you. And it is the all-loving, all-knowing, all-protecting, truly protecting you. That's the thing that's truly protecting you. So I reach for that. My higher self is all-loving, all-knowing, all-caring, will heal my body, will make things happen in my life. So I have learned to switch on that voice and not kill off the ego, but make it come to my way of thinking. Make it come around to what I know. And then I'm working with it. So we're kind of going through the problem of this helicopter mom. We're going through counseling with the ego, so to speak, and making it understand what truly is best for me. And I do, like I said, I do appreciate the ego because the ego has taught me that a snake is going to bite me. If I put my hand down there, I'm going to get bit. I know that that's a fact. I can see that that could happen. My higher self also would do that. So it's the matter of the two, and the intuition is really where my higher voice is speaking more. So I try to really focus on the two and bring them together. And sometimes it requires, if there's bigger things, much bigger things that have happened in your life, and you're noticing this circular pattern of bad things always going on, what I like to do is go in and try and figure out when was the first time that I remember this happening, and then working on through it that way. The first time that happened, look at the truth of everything, really look at the truth of what happened and see what my role in it was. If I had a negative role, then I want to heal that. If I was just the receiver of someone else's negative day or negative time or whatever, that's their issue, but I have to heal it from the fact of now I'm not responsible for that happening. So it's either healing of myself or a healing of my past. And that's truly how I'm able to come through, get rid of the negative energies that are kind of plagued in my field. And I guess a lot of people would call that karma. I do believe that is karma on a certain degree. And so I am sort of healing karma in my life, healing karma, energetic stamps, letting things flow, stopping basically the borders and the whip that's happening with my critical mind, and making everything kind of flow again and be open, and just really, in that case, I'm able to really kind of grab a hold of life and not be afraid of it. Take on new responsibilities, accept a interview with my friend Britta instead of going, oh my gosh, no, I can't do that. Starting a whole new career, and all of these things are things that maybe I wouldn't have done 15 years ago or 10 years ago. Now I'm like, I don't think I'm going to fail because there's no one here telling me that I'm going to. So I don't hear it anymore. Yeah.
Wow. Yay, bravo. What would you say would be one of the fastest ways that some can make shift when they're face to face with their ego? And would you say is the easiest way to make that quantum leap? Pretty much just shift out of that feeling, that mindset, to be able to think clearly and have a conversation with the ego.
Well, I think that it depends on how bad your anxiety is, to be honest with you. If you have a lot of anxiety issues, then I believe that you really, really want to deal with that first, meaning that if you're having trauma in a moment that's creating anxiety, no matter how big or small you think the problem is, you have an anxiety attack. Don't examine the ego at that time. Get out of that place of feeling really, really poorly. And there's all sorts of ways. Like one way is starting to hum. You hum to yourself because it creates the vagus nerve in there, and it activates it. Take a deep breath. Hold the breath in. Let it out slower than you inhaled it. Take a cold drink of water or some sort of drink. Get out of that place. When you feel safer, when you're past it, when you're past that high anxiety, look at what the voice that caused that. Look at the reality and the truth of your situation. Were you just thinking something that was creating that? What exactly was happening? Really examine it and look at it and pick it apart one piece at a time for the truth behind what happened. And if you're unclear about what really is true, find somebody who is a positive seeking person in your life and ask them, what do you think? And have them help you pick it through. Because a lot of times our ego is so strong that it won't even let us out of the cobwebs of our mind. So you have to really kind of swim your way out of it. And the other part I think is really important. If you want to start hearing more from your higher self, you need to get into a heart space. Mm-hmm. And by being in a heart space, you're able to feel more positive love in your life. And then you can hear more of that positive voice when you feel your heart be centered on the truth of who you are. And I think that the ego, one of its worst jobs is that it really creates us to feel like we aren't worthy of a lot of things. It's not trying to do that, but it is a side effect. So once you start increasing self-worth, and it can be as simple as, Jodi, I love you. Every night before you go to bed. I love you, Jodi. Jodi, you are really, really a special person in this world. And I know that may sound very trite, but the truth of the matter is, how often do any of us say, I love you to ourselves? We can throw love across the world to everybody else, but to ourselves, it feels so strange. The first time I started doing that, I remember just feeling that is the most odd feeling. I think I feel like I'm lying. I feel like I'm lying to myself. And now I can say it. I love you, Jodi, and mean it. Mean it as much as I unconditionally love other people in my life. So that's the first step. Acknowledge where you are. Try to find the truth. Get past the cobwebs and be patient and kind with yourself in the process, because it takes a while to really get there. And everybody's on its own learning curve.
That lit me up as you were saying that. That is awesome.
Good. I'm glad.
I want to thank you so much for doing this with me and sharing your perspective of the ego, what it is, how to work with it, and why. And y'all, again, if this is your first time here, please be sure to hit that red subscribe button and check out Jodi's channel, not only just for part 2, but check out what she's got to offer, because as you can tell, she is just a fountain of wisdom. So I'll put her link below. Check out part 2 right now, and we'll see y'all later.
Thank you. Bye.